Welcome to Bittensor Weekly, your source of truth for everything happening in the Bittensor ecosystem. I'm your host, and this is episode 5, April 5th, 2026. This week, Intel Trust Authority engineers co-author a white paper with a Bittensor subnet. Builders gather in San Francisco for the first Exploit Summit, and Tau consolidates above 300 as the market digests a historic March. Let's get into it. Let's start with the numbers. Tau is trading around $300 as of Wednesday, April 2nd. That is down about 5% on the week after briefly touching $371 last week. March ended with Tau up over 73% for the month, one of the top performing assets in all of crypto. Market cap sits at $3.23 billion. 24-hour trading volume has cooled from its peak of $927 million to around $413 million, which is still healthy. On the network side, total staked Tau is 7.34 million, split 72% root and 28% alpha. Active subnets dropped from 57 2 weeks ago to 52 this week, meaning 5 subnets have been deregistered. That is DTau's natural selection at work. Daily emissions remain at 3,600 Tau. The sum of all subnet prices is 1.36 Tau, and registration cost to launch a new subnet has climbed to 847 Tau. That is roughly $254,000 at current prices.
First story, the Exploit Summit. Over the weekend of March 30th and 31st, 2 major events took place in San Francisco. The Exploit Summit brought the Bittensor ecosystem together at the Midway for a research summit, operator forum, and showcase of decentralized AI economies. Alongside it, Bittensor Commons hosted Breakout at the Hyatt Regency, a curated working session with teams from TauStats, CrunchDAO, Macrocosmos, Bitstarter, Yuma Group, and Stillcore Capital. The focus was not marketing. It was practical. Where are the gaps? How does the ecosystem scale? And how do we reduce friction for new builders? This was the first event of its kind for Bittensor, and the signal is clear. The ecosystem is professionalizing. Second story, and the one we're going to dig into in the spotlight. 2 engineers from Intel Trust Authority co-authored a white paper with Targon on Subnet 4, published on Intel's community blog on March 17th. The paper introduces a confidential computing architecture that allows AI workloads to run securely on untrusted hardware. We will break this down in the spotlight. Third story, Chutes on Subnet 64 signed a compute integration with GenLayer, a blockchain that uses large language models directly in its consensus layer. GenLayer validators now have access to over 60 open-source AI models through Chutes with no infrastructure to manage. This means a Bittensor subnet is now providing the inference backbone for another blockchain's consensus mechanism. That is a meaningful step toward real external revenue. Quick Hits Score on Subnet 44 announced a new private track for high-stakes computer vision tasks, with emissions starting at 10% and scaling to 30%. Ridges on Subnet 62 published its Q2 2026 roadmap, and Bittensor co-founder Jacob Steves sat down with VirtualBacon for a deep dive that has already pulled over 8,000 views.
This week's spotlight is on Targon, Subnet 4. The Intel white paper makes it the most newsworthy subnet in the ecosystem right now. First, what Targon does. Built by Manifold Labs, Targon describes itself as an incentivized compute marketplace powered by the Targon virtual machine. Think of it as a decentralized GPU rental service with a confidential computing layer. Users can rent GPUs for AI workloads with guarantees that their data and model weights are encrypted and cannot be accessed by the hardware operators. Now, the Intel connection. On March 17th, 2 Intel Trust Authority engineers, Haidong Xia and Sathi Nair, co-authored a white paper with the Manifold Labs team titled Decentralized Compute on Untrusted Hardware Using Intel TDX and Encrypted CVMs. It was published on Intel's community blog. The architecture combines Intel TDX for CPU-level trusted execution, AMD SEV for additional memory isolation, and NVIDIA confidential computing for GPU protection. Nodes re-verify their integrity every 72 minutes. To be clear about what this is and what it is not, this is a community blog post co-authored by Intel employees, not a formal Intel partnership announcement or press release. But it is still significant. Intel engineers put their names on a Bittensor subnet's architecture paper. That has never happened before with any major chip manufacturer. Why this matters? Confidential computing is the single biggest barrier to enterprise adoption of decentralized AI infrastructure. No corporation will run proprietary models on strangers' hardware unless they can guarantee data protection. This white paper provides a credible path to that guarantee. By the numbers from TauStats, Targon has a market cap of about $83 million. It holds 6.22% of total emissions, making it the second largest subnet by emissions behind Templar. According to Manifold Labs, the platform projects $10.4 million in annual revenue and runs over 1,000 GPUs. The team raised $10.5 million in Series A funding in July 2025, co-led by OSS Capital and Digital Currency Group. The subnet is fully saturated at 256 out of 256 UIDs.
Let's look at what moved this week. The overall market cooled as Tau pulled back from its March highs, and that pullback flowed through to subnet tokens. Top emission share: Templar on subnet 3 at 7.12%, Targon on subnet 4 at 6.23%, Grail on subnet 81 at 2.71%, Basilica on subnet 39 at 2.28%, Nova on subnet 68 at 1.92%, Distal on subnet 97 at 1.78%, Affine on subnet 120 at 1.77%, subnet 95, which is still unnamed on Tau Stats, but run by a team called Actual Computer, at 1.75%, Bitcast on subnet 93 at 1.63%, and Quasar on subnet 24 at 1.46. One thing worth noting, Chutes on subnet 64 does not appear in this emissions table despite being ranked number 1 by market cap. That is because Chutes earns its Tau through root network allocation, not through the alpha emissions mechanism. It still pulls in about 628 Tau per day through its 16% root proportion. Different mechanism, same result. Notable move: Bitcast on subnet 93 continues to climb in the emissions rankings. It is the creator marketing subnet that pays YouTubers and content creators for making Bittensor content, a unique model that turns community engagement into a subnet-level economic activity. The theme this week is consolidation. After a 73% March, the market is digesting gains. 5 subnets were deregistered. Registration cost has risen to 847 Tau, which means launching a new subnet now costs over $250,000. That barrier filters for serious projects. The subnets that held up best during the pullback are the ones with real revenue narratives or strong community engagement. That is it for this week. Tau at 300, Intel engineers on a Bittensor white paper, and the ecosystem gathering in San Francisco. If you found this useful, subscribe and hit the bell. Sign up for the companion newsletter at bittensorweekly.substack.com for deeper data tables and source links. I will see you next Saturday.